And we are live
Hello.
here at Walking the Crossroads.
Hi.
I'm very excited about this episode. I'm very excited about your book and what it has made me feel about the path of, I don't know, like there's three generations, there's three decades in this book that it details, and I can relate to so much of it. To
Wow.
listening to like the Breakfast Club soundtrack and Simple Minds and all that beautiful music, but also all that pain, the despondency and the dystopian reality of the 80s, and it's just marvelous, and coming into your own as a woman and as a spiritual being, and just really fantastic.
Oh,
So
thank
I'm really excited to have you on the show. So Karen Marginot, author of The Bad Girls Club, a spiritual journey, and really fantastic that you've gotten quite a bit of attention about this book, and it is a page turner. I agree 100% by the reviews.
Amazing.
And Firewalker, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to it over the last couple of days and I was drawn into it right away. And as it built through the story, I literally kind of had to know what was going to happen next because it's like I needed closure on the story. I needed to know every step
Mhm.
of the way, so I could feel like I understood the life story. Because you go into it and then you go back to different timelines and I'm piecing it together. And I really loved how you built it.
Mm.
Um, just the layering of the book, the way you formatted it really
Mhm.
was also cool. And the way that it described your early life and then went into where you were in recovery and then went back to this and then about your mom. And I just really, all the different pieces that came up were something that added something to the story and made it really cool. So I appreciated you sharing your story a lot.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And
You're
the and the
welcome.
the young woman who passed away from breast cancer, and she like revalidated her life at the end. The
Oh,
last two, that was such a like a
Yeah.
real, just such a win, right? It was such a
right?
win for me. I really there's a lot for anyone. I recommended this for my sister to who maybe can't relate to some of it, but as a woman and as a mother, I think we can all really find, a lot of us can find something here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that because I got to tell you, can I tell you a little bit about the journey of this book? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
Please.
yeah. Can you start with the origins and
yeah,
how, and you had the strength to actually tell this story because it's deeply, deeply personal. Can you
it is
talk
very
about that?
personal. It is very personal. Well, I
Yeah.
got to tell you, like I said in the book, Um, I learned to read early. There were reasons why I learned to read early. I knew immediately that I wanted to be a writer, and I was terrified of showing anybody any of my writing. And and I've written volumes of stuff that nobody's ever seen. Right, it's tucked away in journals and corners and that sort of thing. So a couple of years ago, a friend, I'm laying around after a surgery, and my friend calls me and she says, "When are you going to write that book?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just not feeling it. I know I should." She said, "You need to go on a writer's retreat." And I said, "Oh, that's a really good idea." So I Google writer's retreats and I find one. It's perfect. The description is perfect. And I go, "Wow, this is it." Where is it? It's in Kenya. Okay,
Oh.
I'm going to Kenya. So I
And
packed my
wow.
bags, off to Kenya I went. And I'm there, and I'm scared to death, and I'm shaking, and I'm writing stuff, and I'm shaking. I'm in this room with these other writers. Some are published. One's a New York Times bestseller author. There's a publisher in the room. And I said, "You know what? I have flown halfway around the world, and I will take it. I will read my stuff out loud to you people, because if it's as bad as I think it is, I will not run into you in the grocery store. I can
Right.
pretend this never happened, and I can just move away." And I thought this is the story that demanded to come out of me. It
Mhm.
demanded. And I just thought, okay, I'm just going to write this thing. I'm going to get out of my system. I'm going to print it out, stick it in a drawer
Mhm.
somewhere. My kids will find it when I die. Now I can write the stuff that I think is really important, right? So I
Sure.
finish it, and I turn it over to my friend, the publisher, Sarah, who wrote the foreword. And she said, "Great. Now make a list of publishers." And I said, "What?" She said, "This is
Right.
going to be a book. This is going to be a book on shelves. People are going
Can I
to
ask
read
you
it."
the chronology of when? in relation to
Yeah.
when we started chatting,
Yeah.
when your relationship with Sarah and how you guys were sculpting, because Karen and I were talking about how she wanted to launch this and stuff. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious,
Yeah.
like how far was before we
It
had our
was. It
conversation.
was before
Yeah,
I found Sticks and Stones and before I found
yeah.
you. And I have to tell you, I am surrounded not only by courageous women, I am surrounded by Sarahs. I have to number them all. So Sarah Carney, who was on your podcast a couple weeks ago,
What's up,
was one of
Sarah?
the women. But Sarah Bullen is the South African publisher who I met. So I
Her
don't want to.
foreword was an incredible
Yeah, that
setup
was
Oh
cool.
yeah.
celebration of you. Wouldn't you agree,
Oh,
Yeah,
Firewalker?
she was like, she looked over and you were just like lit up, and the whole thing where she says all of that, it's almost like you were a vision to her,
oh yeah.
and she had to know what light you were emitting and how she had
Well,
something to
like
do with it.
you're like an
It's
elemental
destiny, you
creature,
know? Yeah.
you know, and honestly, people that are tied into some higher, I don't know, like I say, elevated consciousnesses, like people that really are tied into something, kind of radiate that sort of vibe, and she kind of looked at you in that way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's wonderful, and it's been. In fact, I'm going to her wedding in Botswana in a couple of weeks, and
Oh, that's
we'll be
cool.
together in Greece again, and so this has been a lifelong friendship in the making, right? And very fruitful, and it is. And I learned so much from the writing. I mean, I ended up being a professional writer. I was a technical writer for software for a long, long time.
Hmm.
Not my stuff, right? It's a different thing entirely. It's not my heart, not my art, not my heart, but
The
um
technical writing isn't your heart. This
yeah,
is the
this
this
is
is your
the yes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so
Just to clarify, yeah.
this, thank you, this gave me all the little exercises I need to work through my ego, to work through, all the stuff, all the stories I told myself about being a writer. And now I know I can write. Now I know I can produce a book. And so I'm actually writing two more books right now. I'm actually co-authoring a
Oh,
book
that's
with a
great.
friend and writing my next book, which is not memoir. It'll be nonfiction, but
Are they through Penguin or what are they? What, we don't know
um
yet.
no, I don't know yet. I don't know
We
yet.
don't know. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm
Well,
very
I
excited.
mean, outside of going through the trauma and the recovery, like all the things you talked about,
Yeah.
it also, I mean, because some of that's like you wouldn't say, "Hey, it was super fun." I'm just saying it was fun to read because you're funny and you had a gift for storytelling and you said funny, like the way that you wrote things and little asides, you'd say, the way you describe people and the skill in writing is there. So it's not just like a dry story about somebody who had a hard time and got through it. It's really, it encapsulates a life of somebody that um, has a lot of joy and a lot of
I do have a lot of joy.
light, but is having a really hard time figuring out how that's going to come out. And
Yes.
there's just so much in the way of it that you had covered it up with all kinds of things in your life, and then the traumas kind of hit it, and you hid behind all that. But then once you didn't do that anymore, and then by writing it, it just kind of, I could feel like a wave of resonance from you,
Amazing.
and that's really a beautiful thing. So thank you for writing
You
it. That's
Oh,
really
yeah.
cool.
You obviously had a talent for prose before you
Yeah.
kind of
yes.
hopped into this.
I've been
Like
I've been writing, like I said, my whole life, but I tell you, that is a joyful state for me. And so there's people, I believe people come here, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and people come here with different purposes and different ways of contributing. We're all like yarn, different textures, different colors, and they all weave together to make this beautiful fabric, right? And everybody comes with pieces and things and lessons to learn, and mine is writing. Mine's always been writing. That's my jam, man. Like I will lose time. I'm in such a state of bliss and joy when I write. That is just my jam. And so the whole recovery thing, and I don't care what you're recovering from trauma, phone
what
addiction, sex,
exactly?
food, doesn't
Yep.
matter. It's Baskin Robbins flavor of the month, right? Whatever your jam is that's getting you through from
Retail therapy.
the yes,
Hmm.
over spiritual, hiding behind spirituality, hiding behind working on yourself, right? Like
Right.
I'm done with that
It's a thing.
noise.
It's a thing.
Boring. Get me out in the world, right? All of that for me, the recovery process, no matter what it is, it's a matter of letting go of everything that isn't you. It's really getting to the point where you're like, you know what? I'm good with my essence and I'm going out in the world with it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think when I was in my early 20s, I probably had a moment where I could have tried to not be me and please other people. And it probably would have led me down a path of maybe not addiction, but just things that probably weren't good for me, just to cope with it.
Sure.
And making the change, like just for myself, to be a spiritualized person and say that's who I am and just go forth with that.
Yeah.
That was the kind of thing that gave me the freedom to be myself, where I didn't have to cover it with something else. And then, finding, like Darren did, he found his path. We
Right.
found it early. Like we were like
Mm-hmm.
teenagers having these experiences, and we weren't really, like, no one was telling us it was okay, but we didn't shut it down and we didn't cover it
That's
with other things.
amazing. That is
So
amazing
I
to
think we're
hear.
both lucky on that, because we've been doing what we do for, decades,
Yes.
and shining, like emitting our resonance in the way that we're supposed to in this incarnation. So, you know, sometimes it's a twisting road that can get you there,
Oh, yeah.
but
Well,
those are lessons you learn. And then the power you can give from learning those lessons sometimes is the most potent, and the people that need it the most might hear it.
it's medicine. And I this was always knocking at my door, right? Like I was always playing with tarot cards. My first deck that I bought is 45 years old, and I still use it every day. And but the giving myself permission, like you said, to be who you are and just say, you know what, that's more important than anything else. I'm going for it. That was a journey for me. That was a journey for me, and it's a journey for some people, and there's beauty in that journey too, because like I told my kids, there's no point in life where life doesn't get lifey and smacks you upside the head, right? And some people that happens early, some in the middle, some at the end. You never know when it's going to come, but if it's early, like it was for me, like it was for my boys, you're going to hold the light out for people who are coming behind you.
Sure.
Yeah, it's so jarring and kind of it kind of puts me polarizing to know you now,
Oh
but
yeah.
also know you from the book as some like misanthropic person like wandering around DC. And I know DC and like totally like at the exorcist steps and just
Oh yeah.
doing all the things. And you could have been somebody that I knew in the French Quarter or in Savannah or even in Cleveland at the Fantasy with Trent Reznor, like and somebody I knew, and just really struggling to just keep it together.
Yeah.
And I had to put it down for a minute because I was so concerned about your the character of you that I didn't want you to get fired again. I was like, no, I can't.
How
And
does she
that's
not
good
know what
writing, and
day it
that's
is,
good.
dude? Yeah, I
That's
know. Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you felt like that, Firewalker, but I was.
Well, I did, because there are times when I've known people that I kind of look at them, I'm like, you don't know where you are or what's going on right now, do you?
Right.
You know,
Right.
Right.
they're just lost in a rabbit hole. And it could be fun for them in a way. It's just like all the things that they need to know about being awake and aware and being in the moment with other people is not happening. And
Yes.
I think sometimes, like you said, you felt like you were hovering above yourself for the longest time and never really felt in your body.
Yeah.
And through the recovery process and the five senses routines and the guy that helped you out, Charles, I think his name was,
Yeah.
um, the way that he told you to sit, smell, hear, describe to me. Now we say that's mindfulness, or just how do you get out of an anxiety tech? They tell
That's
you the
what I
same thing.
Right.
Right, because I
taking
have
my
anxiety, so if I
certification.
if I feel weird, yeah, I mean I have moments where I'm like, okay, I need to do deep breathing.
Mm-hmm.
What am I smelling? What are three things I see in the room, and then you ground yourself.
Be here now.
But
Yep. Be here
Ram
now.
Dass, yeah,
Yep.
indeed, and you
Yep.
And then
mentioned that in the
walking
book.
in
I remember
nature,
that.
and then walking in nature because
Yeah,
nature is existing around you, and you don't have all these human constructs to distract you. You're there,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well, the other thing too that was remarkable, and I really didn't talk about it overtly, but Darren, you mentioned it when we were touching base just today or yesterday. You
Yesterday,
know,
yeah.
the business about how spirit, my guides were always with me, always. always,
Yes.
right? You know, I remember that moment after my boss did the intervention on me and called me out, and I
That was it.
literally watched my hand pick up a phone to follow directions, which I never did. I was, you know,
Right.
defiant and belligerent to everyone. And what the hell am I doing? Like I had no control over
So
it.
glad you brought
Right.
that up. We need to
Yeah.
discuss that because that was a light switch went off,
Yep.
and anyone that's so in my late teens, early 20s, I was like experimenting with automatic writing, and of course I stopped because any experiment, and that's why I'm even a little iffy about using the word playing with tarot cards because it does tell you concrete instances that are going to happen in your life. So I'm a little iffy on that, but with automatic writing, you're literally letting an unknown spiritual element of some sort, whether it be human or otherwise, take control of one of your hands and
Yes.
write out whatever your dominant writing hand is. And that,
Sure.
and if you've ever done it, you have, right?
Yep.
Before Firewalker? Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes, Karen.
Yep.
It is scary because something is moving your hand and you're not in control. Now, in this case, your guides that were looking out for you and protecting you
Yes.
said you're okay. We're your manual drive is over, dude. We're putting you on automatic, and that's it.
Yeah.
Autopilot's
Yeah.
Pretty
on,
much.
and that's it. And it was
Yeah.
saved your life.
It
I would
did.
imagine.
It
Yeah,
saved my
Yeah.
life.
yeah.
Sometimes the spirits are like, look, you're not holding the wheel very well. If you don't mind, we're going to go ahead and come in here and we're just going to steer you a little bit over here. And then when you come back to consciousness,
Yeah.
follow our lead, please. Cause that would be, that's why we're telling you all this. Yeah.
Yeah. You
It
know, and
seemed
I
like that
knew it.
happened a few different times. You had many, I mean,
I
the
knew it.
experience that you had when you were with your friend and then the three men were there
Oh
and
my
they ended
goodness.
up being, but I'm saying that sent you like all of the things that kind of what I was telling Darren earlier was that you had trauma points
Yeah. Yeah.
that seemed to be induced to send you down a certain path so that you would be able one day to say these things.
Yeah.
And I think that experience, sometimes we say, oh, why did I have this trauma? Why did I grow
Mm.
up with these parents? Why did this happen to me? Right? But the thing is that sometimes the greatest healers have had the greatest pain.
You know, I don't, it's weird. I've always had a sense that there was a greater purpose in all of this, right? At first, coming out of Catholic schools, I really thought I was being primed to be a saint. And a friend of mine in an AA meeting one time, he is a former priest, and he said, "Why, yes, there is a Saint Karen, and she was the saint of washerwomen." And I said, "Well, that's amazing because I cannot catch up with my laundry. I need to call on
Right.
Saint Karen." But
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
saint
right.
of washerwomen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I did always I've always had that higher knowing. I've always been tapped into spirit. I've had some visitations. I've had some things that I've not talked, that would go into a different book than this particular book. But I had this very strong sense that none of this was wasted time. And the truth of the matter is that when people are suffering and you're in that suffering, be it anxiety or rejection or abandonment or addiction, it doesn't matter. When you're in that pain, you feel so alone. You feel so alone. You feel like you are in that cold, dark room. There is no end in sight. This is never going to end. It's those moments, right? And they're gripping. And I think the important, at least one of the messages that I was really trying to get out there is, oh, God, help me. You are not alone, baby. You know, we all go through these things and you don't need to suffer. So,
Well, yeah, you mentioned that the social aspect of the 12-step program and talking to people about what they had been through, that socialization gave you the energy and the kind of strength that you needed to carry on in your own way because you felt um, that community was something you really never had because you were trying to fit in school, you're trying to fit in at home, trying to fit in these jobs you didn't like. But when you finally made it to that place, then you felt like you had kinship. And we all need kinship. It doesn't matter sometimes where it comes from, but
right.
I thought that was a beautiful part of it as well, and probably why it's so important. So,
Now, maybe I'm wrong, but you're also were somebody that I think was very, as a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and I can relate to this. Your mind just creates dialogue and can interact with people, and you have a gift for being an extrovert, whether or not you want to or not,
Right.
whether or not that's your comfort zone or not. But even early Karen was kind of a social badass.
Oh yeah.
So how do we create a new life for ourselves with no social outlet?
It's
And that those people at those meetings,
yeah.
those people were that infrastructure to say you can still have this joy in your life
Yes.
from humanity, but it doesn't need to be immersed in alcohol or what have you. Yeah.
Well,
So like
and it's interesting.
your sponsor said, I'm going to teach you how to have fun.
Yeah, that was really
Yes.
important. That
That's
was
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
really important because I was so young. I was 23, and I was like,
Right.
who gives this stuff up now? Like I'm just
Right.
getting started,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
but I didn't know that joy and fun and contentment and happiness would be possible. I really didn't. And and I want to make a point too. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day about this. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for the 12-step framework. And it was the first door that opened to me for spirituality, and I've grown. It's been sort of a foundational piece, but I've grown, and my spirituality incorporates so many other things. You can see I'm a green witch. I've got a lot of other modalities that I work with.
I can
Um,
attest to that as well.
it
Yeah.
it
Hmm.
The socialization there was like a tool, but I never really found my people there. I found some people there, but I was never, but I used it as a tool. So there's a lot of people who will reject help because like, I just don't like them. I don't like them. I don't relate to them. These aren't my people. That's okay. They don't have to be your people. Use the tools in ways that are useful to you. And that's what I ended up doing. Right.
So to connect the dots there, humility let you see the people that you actually could form real connections to, instead of these people that were just ephemeral in your life.
Yeah, I think so.
And you had the muscle memory to do so,
Yeah.
but forge the real relationships,
Yes. Yes.
forge the real ones. And I have to say, that young man that you had in your car when you flipped your car, um, that is a brave young man, and he obviously cared about you because he didn't make a stink or anything.
No, he
So
didn't. No, he
no,
didn't.
I love the fact that he was like,
we're both like,
yo,
what?
that,
We
yeah,
were
we were
like,
talking about that
what?
this morning. I was like, guys, like, yeah, that was crazy. Man, all I did, I got a little bump. I'm good. You go ahead and handle your business. I'll see you around the bend.
Wow.
And I'm
Exactly.
like, how did he not freak out? I guess, you know what? When you're in I guess I would say a certain type of time in your life where just wild things might happen. It's just another wild thing to happen. Oh, I was in this
Exactly.
car. It flipped over. I was fine. I walked
It
out. It's a
reminded us
story you
of a
tell at the
friend we
bar
have,
the
a
next day.
mutual friend we
Exactly.
had passed
Right.
away.
It's a good story, right? It's a
Yeah.
good story.
It reminded us of Dwight. Remember we were talking about
Oh,
the
yes,
somebody that
indeed. Yeah.
deal with whatever was happening in the French Quarter. Yeah, just some wild. Yeah,
Just
Yeah.
you
but
never know what's going to happen next in a story like that. And yours too.
yeah.
I mean, the way that the relationship with your mother um informed how you dealt with other people. I saw her as kind of like a reason maybe you were coping, and then maybe the relationship that you didn't really have with your father informed some of the choices you made in the romantic sense, and it all just seemed to not be working. And it was
Yeah.
annoying the shit out of you. Even though you were sober, you were always, in certain parts of the book, like, I'm still not happy. Just because I'm not drinking and drugging, it doesn't mean that everything's great. The
Right.
work's not over. You said it just begins when you become sober.
That's
So I
absolutely
thought that's a
correct.
good thing for someone to know. Because if someone's watching this, like, okay, so all I have to do is quit
Mm.
and then I'll be fine. So what would you say to that?
Wherever I go, man. I just take my stuff with me. I got to do the work. Like I'm greedy. I'm a greedy girl. I want love. I want joy. I want happy. I want contentment. I want freedom. I want peace of mind. I want freedom from anxiety, right? I want freedom from fear. Well, that is not the way I lived before I started drinking. And
Right.
so just stopping drinking or just stopping the drugs, it just says it's band-aids, right? I'm still left with all that. I need to do the work. I needed to do the spiritual work. If I'm going to, make those gains that I so much want and I have in my life today. I mean, my kids ask me, are you afraid of anything? And honestly, I can't think of much that I am. And to have a life where you are not afraid and you just
Right.
feel free to roam around and have a
It's a
good
gift and a
time.
curse. It's a gift and a curse. Yeah.
Whoo, I mean, it's golden, right? And that's
Yeah.
what I wanted. That's the holy grail. But I have to be willing to do the work. And so Missy, my sponsor, she would say, you got to pick one. None of this is going to happen unless you're honest, open-minded, or willing. Just pick one. Pick one. Well, I knew I
Right.
couldn't be honest. Wasn't all
Right.
that open-minded, but I could be willing because I don't like to suffer. I do not suffer comfortably. And
Right.
if I'm in pain, I'm going to surrender to whatever's in front of me and hope to God it's something healthy, So
Right.
I will do the work.
Yeah. And doing the work, as far as the steps are concerned, I mean, I think what most people maybe think is if it almost sounds like too much work to just try to get a good life going, because it's so much. And I think that people don't want to go through like telling a bunch of people they're sorry and running around going
Yeah.
back into their life and writing down all the stuff they've been through. But what would you say that the effect of that had on you, and what do you think would have happened if you didn't do that?
Or can I add to that a little bit? Like you said at the end, towards the end of your book, that there are other modalities.
There are
That, so at this
so
point
many.
in the game,
Sure,
There are
you know,
sure,
so many other ways to do it, and not all of them. I mean, the 12 step it's a model, right? And
right,
there's benefits to it, and there's drawbacks to any, just like any other model, right? That's where I got my orientation because in 1985 that was the only thing around,
only,
right,
and the world has changed. They've done
sure,
research. They've thrown tons of money into addiction and alcoholism. It's science based now. There are so many other options. One of the biggest things that really helped me though in the beginning, because you're right, it's overwhelming. My entire life was on fire. Everything had crashed and burned. I'd crashed and burned everything. I smelled bad. I looked bad. I acted bad. Didn't have a lot going for me. And to think about how am I going to get from point A to where I am today seems so overwhelming. The greatest gift the 12-step program ever gave me was one day at a time. All I have to do is one thing in front of me today. And I'm not going to
right,
do it perfectly, and that's okay. I can call it a night, draw the shades, go to bed, and try again tomorrow. And slowly over time, just one day at a time, things started changing.
right.
I had to be able to give myself time to get a little piece better, do something a little bit better. And
because you
in the
didn't
beginning,
lose
it's
all
not
your,
fun.
yeah, you didn't lose all of like the challenging behavior that you had like
Oh
right away.
God, no, 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 no.
Your
No, not at all.
personality doesn't
No,
change just because you're not drunk.
no.
No, because
No,
wherever I go, right? So it's
right,
just me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
there's so much joy to be had, right? And there's like if anybody had told me when I was even 25, 26, 27 years old in early recovery, right? And stable, right? That I would be free of fear, you know, having the kind of quality of life that I have now, the freedom that I have now, the contentment, the joy. I don't want for anything. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I would edit my reaction too to say it's a gift and a curse. No, I am my fearless attitude and having lived and being desensitized by New Orleans and Savannah and Montreal and LA and even Cleveland in some aspects. I don't want to adopt fear as a part of my life. And if people can't relate, then that's their issue. I wouldn't go backwards to that
I
at all.
wouldn't.
No,
No,
never.
no, no,
Ever.
no. And
No.
it's common sense. Like I don't. I'm not going to put myself in dangerous situations. I'm going to use good judgment today. I trust my judgment today. I didn't trust my
Mhm.
judgment back then. I trust my
right,
judgment today. I value myself. I take care of myself. I take really good care of myself, because I know
Mhm.
that if this isn't good, I'm not going to be good to anybody else, right? It all starts here. So my relationships with other people are a reflection of how I treat myself. You know, if
right.
I'm
You can't give from an empty cup.
if I'm not kind to myself, I'm not going to be all that kind to you.
Right. That makes sense. That makes
And
sense.
the story from your book still evolves. The relationships still can change, and that's
Absolutely.
Sure.
always can be challenging. And but you have the sort of like with, for lack of a better word, Godhead or understanding of your guides, the universe, and
Yes.
what your needs are and what your children's needs are.
Yes.
So it's going to help you navigate through whatever the pitfalls, pratfalls are, and that's fantastic.
Well, the bigger part of it too for me, and kind of the ongoing story, is that that was a doorway that I walked through into spirituality, and it did give me time and curiosity to start exploring other things like breath work, like
Mhm.
yoga, like crystals, like tarot, like intuitive readings, and discover things in me that I wasn't in touch with before. And so it's given me another level of richness, both for myself and to work with other people, which has been beautiful.
It sounds like the person that I read about in the first three chapters of your book had all those things, but they were
I wasn't in
pummeled
touch.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pummeled, and what it just translates to, and what a lot of people that I talk to in beginning stages of spiritual development, we would call that remedial magic, which means
Mm.
you're somehow surviving through all this,
Right?
Right.
but you don't know what the hell you're doing, and you can't put a name on it, and you don't know what the heck's going on,
Exactly.
but
Right.
someone is helping you like meander through all this
Yeah.
craziness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like learning. It's learning. It's early learning, and it's like being in school. It's like spiritual school, right?
and then you learn how to give back, and then it's
Right.
like the whole scenario's
Everything
changed
shifts.
Well, see, now that
on its
that
head.
part right there, I think, just to interrupt, sorry, but I would say that when you talked about getting out of your own way by helping other people,
Oh yeah.
and being able, when you focus on service, you're not as worried about your own BS because you're working for other people. You're in service to them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And sometimes I experience that because I might have a day, or I've had a couple of days, or whatever's going on, and I go into, like Darren knows, I go into Marie Laveau's where I work, and I light the candle on the altar, and I do some spiritual work, and people come in, I start helping them with stuff. And a lot of the stuff that I could have had a problem with, or things in my mind, or I need this or I want that, it just kind of goes away.
Yeah. Just evaporates.
And for me,
He's a
that's
little
just
like the moose at Wally World that says hi to you when you walk in the door.
welcome to Marie
Hello.
Laveau's. Candles to
No, but
your right,
he genuinely likes
readers
people,
to your
and so
left.
do I. So
Yeah,
they would get some of the other people that went in the mid like 2000 210s or whatever. We would the two of us would be like two chuckle, like because we would just because we were so excited about just the general energy there
Oh yeah.
and buoyant, and we would do choreography like we would just
sure.
because we were just generally enjoying the vibe,
That's
which is
great.
Well, I
That's
I mean, and to that point, I feel very energized and alive by helping other people. They're not taking
yes.
anything from me.
yeah.
Yes.
I think a lot of people think if I give to other people, they're going to get something from me. You don't understand it's a circle,
It
right? So it keeps
totally is.
rejuvenating you. It keeps
Yes.
rejuvenating your spirit.
Yes.
So for me, when I'm talking to people, I get charged up. I'm not sad or
Yes.
depleted when they leave. I'm sitting there like, man, that was great. We were talking about this and that, and they were just tripping out.
Yes.
Everything was, and they just had a mind-blowing thing because I said some stuff and blah blah blah. And then someone comes up and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I'm just ready to do it again.
It's a
So
vibe.
that's addicting.
It
That's
is
a
a
safe thing
vibe.
to get addicted to, is really the circulation of consciousness between beings. Because that's what we're doing anyway.
Yeah.
So focusing on that intentionally is beautiful. And another thing, I was going to say is that the way that the program that you were in talked about like the higher power and like God or whatever that word means to people.
Right.
But then the guy said, you know what? Just go to whatever makes you happy, what
That's
makes
it.
you feel serene. And so you had a vision of a beach in Delaware. You're seeing the crystally stuff and the cold weather and all this. And for you, that is your like mental projection of peace and
Yeah.
a mental projection of having solitude because you were alone there.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a bunch of other energy around you. You could just be yourself. And I think maybe that felt good. And I think there's a lot to be said that there's a million paths and you don't even have to choose one.
No.
They're all the same path. They have different looks. It's like we talk about 31 flavors. It's all the same energy in different forms. So
Exactly.
you don't really have to pray to anything. You can just be you and connect with everything however you want to do it. But as soon as you plug in, you will feel the connection.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the energy will feel connection. And
And you're talking to
that's a
two
beautiful thing. I
eclectic
appreciate that.
practitioners right now, so
Right.
for example,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
across
That's
the board.
what we do every day. So I mean, and that's when you talked about that, I was a little nervous. I'm like, does this mean she's going to go the Jesus route and
Nope.
start, and not that that would be bad. It's just
No.
there's a lot of control in those particular environments sometimes.
There can be.
And you grew up with it. So I was like, I don't think that's going to work for you. And I appreciated you talking about all the other things like the Lotus place and all the other things that you went through that gave you a sense of peace inside that kind of took you along your journey. And, that snaky little road we go on, I
Yeah.
appreciated that part of it a lot. So,
Oh, thanks.
yeah,
Can
that
I
was
ask you about the
beautiful.
changeling chapter or the part 3 with the changeling?
Yeah.
Because does that specifically talk about the Irish mythos and folklore behind maybe I was like transplanted by like the Fae or the She, and
Mhm.
maybe I am a magical person that didn't really fit with my family, or was that maybe okay, all right,
Maybe.
okay,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I work a lot with my Celtic roots right now, and I've got a couple.
mhm,
I work with the she.
okay.
In fact, I got
Well,
my
we were
she card
talking about it. Oh
today.
yes, okay,
Yes, and then my Celtic tarot. So
very nice. The
yeah, the
Rowan
oracle.
tree and stuff, very good.
I
Yeah.
work a lot with that energy right now, and
You
there's a
talked about the Tuatha De Danann in our last episode, actually.
yes.
We did, we
Or,
did, we
yeah.
did.
Yeah, it's a developing area for me right now. I don't know a lot. I haven't done a lot of formal like education or
Mhm.
research on it. It's more intuitive right now, but it's really been coming in hard right now, and that connection between worlds, right?
Did, didn't you kind of relate to Caradwin when we were there for that ritual? Like, because he,
Yes, yes,
The
yeah. So
reverse,
I'm just
yeah,
ringing a bell for Caradwin. I'm just
yes,
saying.
right.
yes,
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
and one thing I have noticed that happens a lot is that, especially with women who go through the maiden and mother stage of their lives, when they enter crone,
Mm-hmm.
all of the gifts they had when they were the maiden that were shunned or they didn't develop come
Oh,
back for
You know
that
what?
is right
for
on.
that.
My
They come back for
sister.
you.
My
Yep.
Yeah,
sister looked at me, after my youngest graduated from college and launched in this last year, and she said, and
Hmm.
I just started picking up all my things again, and she said, "You are returning to your 20s.
right,
You're doing all the things that you did. Like my house is full of crystals again, and all the
right.
things, right? That is
Yeah,
absolutely a fact.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And it happens. I talk to people a lot where they find that they finally have the space to
Yes.
not just care about themselves when they're a maiden or care about others when they're a mother, but now they can like care for the universe in a way
Yes.
and have the space to let all of those energies come through in a way that they can approach healthfully because they've had a life to understand and they have wisdom. That's why some people don't teach some of this stuff until you're older.
That's
There's a
absolutely.
lot of traditions that they don't have, you just don't get told things until you're older because you won't have the maturity to actually process it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So I think that's beautiful that that's all happening right now.
Yeah.
And
We both
you
celebrate that for you, and
look,
I celebrate it for myself. And I don't know, I haven't really asked you, Firewalker, if that's how you feel, but I
yeah,
tend to resonate with some '90s music. I was just somewhere where I was at back then because I
yeah.
was just fully myself, and I was fully
Hmm.
just like really embracing like what I can add to the world. And you can do that, but in a more wise space, in a more humble space,
Yeah.
and I think that's beautiful. I think that's
Yeah,
really
I'm getting back to my artistic roots now
That's cool.
at the age that I am because I feel like I kind of feel like I know what I want to say now, and I don't care who cares.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
it's kind of a freeing thing, that fear thing. I don't care. And I didn't really care then, but it's almost like I didn't have the maturity to just stand in my own power and say, this is what I think. I would be trying to scream it at somebody instead of calmly saying, this is what I think. Do with it what you want, but I'm going to be cool either way, and I'm still going to be here when you leave.
Not the attachment. You've lost the
Yeah,
attachment,
yeah, it doesn't.
right?
I'm going to
Right.
sit in my own circle and it's
Yeah.
going to be the same whether you're here or not.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, that whole, waiting until you're older thing. I liken it to my youngest used to always get mad that he couldn't watch certain movies. I wouldn't let him watch
Right,
certain movies. And he'd say, I can watch, I can take it. And I was like, no, that's not it. It's going to ruin it for you because you're not going to understand. You won't
right.
understand
Oh,
it, and it will ruin the movie for you, and you're going to think the movie sucks. Come back to it in 5 years, you're going to love it because you'll get it,
Right,
right?
right.
And that's kind of the way it works with wisdom, I think.
Indeed. Indeed. You get a much richer experience from reading the same thing when you're 20 than when you're 50.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And then you can speak on it in a way that you probably wouldn't have been able to before. So,
Right.
I mean, I think I'm glad we've talked about all this, but maybe another time we could talk about just Celtic stuff and the things that
Oh
you're,
yeah,
maybe the next book you're doing. So that would be,
that's cool.
yeah. Can we tell us a
that's a whole
little
other
bit
thing.
about maybe what
Yeah,
you're interested in for your next
Yeah.
project?
What's
yeah.
next?
So there's two books that I'm working on. I'm co-authoring a book, and this kind of goes back to, I was in corporate for a long time, part of writing
Um,
teams. It's a lot of fun to work with a bunch of writers. It's like a lot of fun. And going out
Yeah.
on my own in this last year, the one thing I realized is that I'm missing the team, right? So I dialed up a new friend of mine and I said, and she's got an interesting topic, and it really is about the crone, age. It's what happens to women after they're past menopause, your kids are grown, maybe your marriage survived, maybe it didn't. You're staring at another 25, 30 years. What do you want to do? It's
It's
almost
funny.
like,
It's funny I brought that up. Then I'm glad that
yeah,
you're.
yeah. And
That's
it's
funny because
almost
no,
like
I
you're
don't know.
right
That's
on it,
what.
homie. Yeah,
Hey,
that's
look
it's
at me.
another life stage, right?
Yeah,
It's almost like you're
that's
you're
beautiful.
re-entering
Yeah.
your 20s, but now you've got wisdom and money, and
There you
what do
go.
you want to do with it? You're free in a
Right.
way. So we're co-authoring a book. It's called The Third Curve Remixed.
Great.
And that'll come out hopefully end of year, early next year, and we'll just keep you posted on that. And then I'm
Fantastic.
writing my own book, which some of the Celtic, mysticism may get woven into, called The Book of Falls, and I'm really digging it.
Nice. Beautiful. That's
Is
great.
there any particular divinity form that we should look for that would be involved in that particular publication, or it's Rhiannon, it's Caradwin,
Yes, yeah,
it's all the
The
things.
Morgan. I
The
love the Morgan.
Morrigan, yeah. All right,
She's my
okay.
girl. She's my
All
girl.
right, that's true. All right,
That's
yeah.
been a theme lately over here. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
A little bit, little bit.
Go back and watch the one we just did with Tales from the Coven because she's a priestess of Morrigan and you'll
Oh,
probably
oh.
yeah.
Oh, did you
It's
not
really
watch that
cool.
last one?
Not the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
one. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
literally the
She's dope.
Morrigan. Yeah,
She's
like
dope.
Oh
Yeah,
my
she's a
gosh. Okay, I
priestess
got
of
to
the
get on
that
Morrigan.
it.
was our
So
last episode. Was
I
yeah,
got to
yeah.
get on it.
She's a cool ass lady. Yeah,
Queen
for sure.
Boudica, and we
I love
talked
it.
Yeah,
about
so that was
yeah
cool.
the whole thing. Yeah. And it can be something that's attractive to some women, and it could be a scary path, and it could be,
Sure.
or so I like to suggest that you really do the work and understand what it means to connect with her, because you know it's a challenge. It can be challenging,
It can be
Well,
challenging.
you
It's
can write
trauma.
about
Yeah,
your experiences. Well,
right?
yeah, you can write about your experiences because now that you have your inner warrior, you have your power, and now it means more to you because you want to leave something behind.
absolutely.
And that's what happens at this age. You say, now what am I going to leave behind because I have a certain amount of time. Now what do I have to say? And I better say it now.
You
Exactly.
navigated the battlefield. You certainly
Yeah,
did.
I'm
Yeah,
ready.
I read about it.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
that's
you went
beautiful.
through the fire. You went through it.
Yeah,
I mean,
you've been
that's
through it.
wild.
Yeah.
And I
Powerful.
recommend anybody to read this book.
Yes.
Not just about recovery. It's a person's life, but it's just a story of overcoming obstacles and finding yourself and projecting that in a way that isn't with fear and isn't with the trauma defining you. And I think we all have trauma. So I mean, I felt a lot of it just from my own experiences. So I want to just appreciate you for writing it. Just my own experience was profound, and I appreciate what you did.
Thank you.
I concur with that. And I also say
Indeed.
it is a wonderful representation of
Yeah,
maiden, mother, and crone, and
for
how to
sure.
understand the transition, how to exist through all those phases. And that it's
Yeah.
outside of the recovery aspects of it, and which is
Absolutely.
really good for anyone who's in recovery. This would
Oh
be a
yeah,
great, just a keystone on how to just like to live by, sort of thing,
Thank
indeed.
you.
and rely on yourself and believe in yourself. That's the
Absolutely.
thing. because that
Only
was
you
something
can do
you
it.
struggled with, but you continually went back to that, and it was a thread that kept you going, which is great.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
we definitely honor what you went through and the fact that you wrote about it in such a candid way. And just, giving you props for that, because it's not easy to do. And I'm sure it wasn't easy to revisit all of that to write it. So thank you for that as well.
Is your family French Huguenot, or
I'm
was
sorry.
that? Is your family French Huguenot, or is this because
Mm,
it's
It's my family is actually, believe it or not, even though I've got a French last name, I am like 90% Irish.
okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So I didn't know if it was Huguenot, like from across the you know the
no.
English
Well, I think
Channel.
they all got friendly with each other. There's a
Oh
lot
well,
of,
There's a
yeah,
time, yeah. There's
there's
a
a little
time where,
yeah,
intermingling.
yeah.
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 Well, I gotta say, I'm blessed to have you as a friend, and
Thank
I'm
you,
blessed
Darren.
to have you as a guest here. The name of the book is The Bad Girls Club, and the name of the author is Karen Marginot, and she is an incredible lady. And you'd be blessed to spend a little time and listen to it, or get the tactile book and read it. And we'll look for you again on Walk in the Crossroads.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Karen.
Thanks
both.
again, you
Thank you.
too.
Enjoyed this. All right.
Great night.
Appreciate you.
Thanks again.
Bye. Woo! That amazing. Wow.